apiece, and we've just received word, Lee, that Mike Krasovic, you now see him on the sidelines with those crutches, will not be back this afternoon. He has a bad sprain of that left ankle.
And we mentioned it several times. I'll mention it again. That is a monumental injury for the Central Wildcats, but I'll also mention again, they were trailing 7-0 when he went out of the ball game. They now are tied at 7 apiece, so obviously this team has rallied around everybody else. Greg Leba, the receiver Steve Massett, and of course number 7, quarterback Brad Beck, who maybe had a few jitters at the beginning of the ball game, Harv. His first few passes were not right there, but that last pass he threw, that touchdown toss to Steve Massett, was right there, and I think Brad Beck and the rest of the Wildcats know what the situation is. Hey, injuries are part of this ball game. Krasovic is out, but they have some other guys, and I look for a very good second half. The winner of this ball game will advance to the next round. They'll play the Arvada-Thornton winner. We don't have any report yet on that ball game.
Let's take one more look at the only scoring drive for the Central Wildcats. Here it is, Brad Beck. And watch this pump fake he gives Steve Massett. Massett made a cut. There's the fake by Beck. Massett goes out on his coverage and goes into the end zone. There is nobody within 2 steps of Steve Massett. Beautiful over-the-shoulder catch, 22 yards. That put Central on the board, tied Smoky Hill at 7 apiece. We talked about the stats a few seconds ago. It couldn't be any more even. That's what our score reads, 7-7. And the Central Wildcats have not only had to adjust their offensive attack, their rushing attack because Krasovic's out, they've also had to make an adjustment in their kicking game. Chris Hackworth, who usually handles only the kickoffs, he's a big offensive tackle for these Central Wildcats, now will do the extra points and apparently the field goal attempts if they're not too far away.
That's right. I think, however, Coach Jim Paul showed us that if they're very close, they're going to go ahead and go for the yardage on 4th down instead of risk missing a field goal. They had a 4th and 8 situation in deep in Smoky Hill territory right as Krasovic went out of the ball game. They chose on that instance to go for it, and they did not make the first down.
And we're just about to get things underway here. Butler Bowl, where we saw Cherry Creek destroy George Washington in the first game of this doubleheader. And we've got a great one, Smoky Hill and Central. And as we mentioned earlier, big contingent of Central fans up from Pueblo. And Smoky Hill, well, they just didn't quite have the turnout that they might have expected.
I'm really surprised, Harv. I do believe, as you mentioned earlier, there are just as many people on the side of the field that we're on, which happens to be the visitor side, the Central side, as there are on Smoky Hill side. It's a sparse turnout at best, and people in southern Colorado aren't used to that. They certainly support their high school football programs out in that area.
Smoky Hill sideline, and to start the second half, the Central Wildcats will receive this kickoff, and they have sent Greg Leba and James Chandler deep, and Smoky Hill's Buffaloes will be kicking off. 24 minutes of football left, and this one, as Coach Jim Paul mentioned, just may be a defensive struggle the rest of the game, although Smoky Hill scored on that 60-yard play from scrimmage, the first play from scrimmage, and it looked like we might have had a wild offensive show for a second. Referee gives the signal, and we are about to get things underway. Greg Wilson kicking off for Smoky Hill. Kicked one high and not too deep. That is Chandler, takes it at his 5, across 10-15. He is up to the 20, gets a great move and moves to the 29-yard line. Chandler with a little move there, got him 9 more yards.
And the Wildcats start in pretty decent field position. We'll take a look at it. I thought Chandler might go up the middle for a second, Harv. It looked like there was a bit of a seam, a bit of an opening up the middle. Instead, he decided to go to his left. And coming up in just a moment, he puts a nice, right there it is, a nice juke move that allowed him to pick up about 10 more yards. First possession, second half, Brad Beck goes to the line.
And the Wildcats will start 1st and 10 from their own 28-yard line. Chandler and Leba in the eye behind Brad Beck. First man is Greg Leba. Leba to the outside, and he is stopped for about a yard loss. He didn't get that corner turn.
No, he didn't. Tom Erlinson brings down Greg Leba for the Smoky Hill Buffaloes. And I think that it will be no gain whatsoever. Well, no, they're going to give him some yardage on that. It's kind of hard to see from our angle. Once again, there's one of those situations. Looked like he didn't get much, but they're giving him 4, bring up a 2nd and 6.
And the ball is on the Central 28-yard line. They started from, apparently, their 24-yard line. 2nd down and 6 call. And back to Chandler. Second man through. Chandler across to about the 31-yard line. And he picked up about 3.
78 Fred Hecht makes the tackle for Smoky Hill. Kind of an interesting situation the way this is working. When Central looked so good on that drive, Brad Beck went to the air so much. They got the ball ending the first half. They decided to basically run out the clock, I think is what they did, all running plays. And once again, Harv, they're showing that right now a tendency towards running the ball again.
And it's a 3rd down and 3 call for the Wildcats. Bassett is out wide left, and Herrera is out wide right. Backs are in the pro set. And Beck wants to throw over the middle, had Krasovic wide open and just overthrew it.
And Krasovic runs into number 24 for Smoky Hill. That's Brian Britton. They're saying a few words out there, but everything's cool. They tempers cool off a little bit. And we'll see, for the first time in this ball game, a punt by the Central Wildcats. Their punter, there you see him, number 7. That's Brad Beck. He averages 37 yards per punt. The state's top punt returner, Jeff Nobenschuh, is back to receive a punt. He averages over 24.5 yards. When I talked to Dave Socher at halftime, he said this could be one of the keys in the ball game, how well Central is able to cover the punt. And we'll see if Beck decides to kick it away from him.
To go along with that 24-yard average, Nobenschuh has broken a few touchdowns. Beck hits it, and it's a pretty good kick. Nobenschuh will field it at his 32-yard line, cuts back left, now back up the middle, 35, up to about the 37-yard line. They did have good punt coverage that time.
They certainly did, Harv. I kind of wondered how anybody, whether it's high school, college, or anything, could average that many yards per kick. Dave Stringer makes the tackle on Nobenschuh. He obviously has some good moves. He's had 3 touchdowns punt returning. He's had about 5 rushing. And right there, the Wildcats were all over him. And it's not the best field position in the world, but not bad. 37-yard line is where Smoky Hill takes over.
1st and 10, 10 minutes, 30 seconds here remaining in the 3rd quarter. Smoky Hill 7, Pueblo Central 7. It's been a good ball game. There's a handoff up the middle to Beatty, and Beatty crosses the 40 to about the 43-yard line.
Second time we've seen that. Beatty loves to just blow over defensive backs, Harv. He's done it a couple of times, and Beatty really is not that big. It's not that big of a Smoky Hill team. He's only 5'10", 195 pounds. He's a senior, but he gets the ball, and he just has driving steam and can push those guys out of there.
Beatty picked up 5, call it 2nd and 5. Ball is on the Smoky Hill 43-yard line. Kofid hands off to Nobenschuh, and Nobenschuh dragged down behind the line of scrimmage. He'll lose 2.
Number 25 just hangs on for dear life. That's Greg Romero, who brings Nobenschuh down for the loss, and that was certainly a critical play for that Central High defense. This quarterback, Kofed, maybe doesn't throw the ball real well for Smoky Hill, but he handles those misdirection handoffs very well.
And with the full house backfield, 3 backs, he has a few more options than you usually see in high school football. Call it 3rd and 7, a loss of 2 for Nobenschuh on the last carry. The ball's at Smoky Hill 41-yard line. Full house again behind Kofid. To the second man through is Nobenschuh. Nobenschuh, a little room. He's the 47, but still not enough for the 1st and 10.
And Mike Mestis makes the tackle once again for the Central Wildcats, and that was a 1st down saving tackle. It looked like he was definitely going to have enough for a 1st down and a whole lot more, and Mestis came from nowhere in his safety position to make the tackle. Give Mike Mestis a lot of credit. He's been doing it all day today. Harv, I think they're going to go for this.
Well, they've got Jamie Rolls, number 23, the punter, and he's a left-footed kicker. And back deep for the Wildcats is Chandler. Knowles gets a kick. It's a line drive. Chandler takes it at his 20-yard line, and he is smothered.
And it looks like Central will begin this drive on their own 20, so I think what we thought was going to happen before the ball game started, a defensive struggle, I think that's what it's going to turn out to be. That was a line drive punt, but there was plenty of coverage on Chandler, and no, Smoky Hill wasn't going for it that time. They're going to try to make Central come up with a nice long drive. Their only touchdown drive of the ball game was exactly the same distance, 80 yards.
And we've got 2 teams that are very evenly matched in this ball game. 8 minutes, 38 seconds remaining, 3rd quarter. Score tied at 7. Massett is out wide left, backs in the pro set behind Brad Beck. And he gives to Chandler, and Chandler's across the 25-yard line. He may have picked up 5.
I believe so. Good yardage for Central on 1st down. Gives them so many more options on 2nd down. Ending the 1st half, we saw a lot of the tight end. Here it is once again. Just the handoff. It looks like Central trying a bit of misdirection type stuff. They don't have as many backs, however, as Smoky Hill. They will call that a gain of 5, bring up a 2nd and 5, and a key man to look for is another Krasovic, Greg Krasovic, Mike's brother, the tight end for Central. We saw him. He played a big role in the 1st half, and I think he'll play even more in the 2nd half.
2nd and 5 as they gave Chandler 5 on that last carry, and Labor with the ball this time, and he's stacked up. He may have gained 2 yards, but not much more than that.
Looks like they're going to give him maybe 2, maybe even 3 yards. I don't think they're going to call that a 3-yard gain. We have an interesting angle up here. We're a lot lower to the field than you usually are when you call a game from the press box. And somehow he was able, Label was to fight and grind out about 3 yards. So it's 3rd and short. Call it 3rd and 2 for Brad Beck and Central.
3rd and 2, and the backs are in the pro set behind Brad Beck. Beck wants to throw on 3rd and 2. He's chased out of the pocket, and he scrambles for what looks like, maybe the first down. He's up to the 30-yard line, and they started just about their 20, so Beck may have gotten it.
I believe so. I think he got just across the line. Well, maybe not. However, it looks like they needs to get to the 31 for the first down. Apparently, they started on their 21. Tom Erlinson makes the tackle. This is about the 2nd or 3rd time this has happened in the ball game. Beck, with nobody to throw to, shows he has some ability to scramble, and he gets across the 30. It all depends on where they mark forward progress. Looks like just about the 31. Crucial measurement here for Central. And I believe it's just a hair short. That's only inches.
It is, just by the nose of the football, it is short. And the referees are taking an official timeout here. So with 7 minutes and 9 seconds remaining in the 3rd quarter, we've got Smoky Hill 7 and Central 7. We'll be back with more after this. And his offensive team back on the field. There's still a little confusion. I don't know if the players know who's supposed to be in and who isn't.
One of the things these teams are not used to, Harv, are television timeouts, and that's exactly what they're calling for us here on a few occasions. The coaches aren't used to this. The players aren't used to this. It almost looked like they were trying the punt-type situation that Ken Hatfield uses with the Air Force Academy, brings his offensive unit in to right at the last second, and then brings them off the field and tries the quick kick and hopes he can get some type of defensive adjustment, some type of procedure call on the defense. In this situation, everybody's confused, including us, and I think they've called another timeout, possibly.
The Central Wildcats have called another timeout. There's exactly 7 minutes remaining before the 3rd quarter ends. However, we saw 7 seconds roll off the clock before the referees realized it was a TV timeout. You see Coach Paul talking to his quarterback, Brad Beck, on the sidelines. And it is a big call. It's 4th and 1, and Central is in their own territory at the 30-yard line, but it's a short one. They're only 3 or 4 inches away from the 1st and 10.
One of those calls that either the coach is the hero or the coach is the GOAT the next day. If you don't make it, obviously, you give Smoky Hill and Coach Easter the ball in great field position. You can hear the Central crowd that's just right below us urging the Wildcats on. Brad Beck is back in the ball game. Jim Paul has made the call, and 9 times out of 10, they would have called this play to Mike Krasovic, but he's not in the ball game this time around.
But you watch, if they keep it on the ground, they'll probably go over Jay Tapia and Joe Douglas on that right side. That's where Coach Paul says he likes to pick up those short yardage carries. But no, it's the option, and Beck's got a hole. He's across the 40, up to the 45-yard line. 1st and 10 for the Cats, and a big call on 4th down.
Certainly was a very big call for the Central Wildcats. Brian Britton and Jim Vavra make the tackles. But if those guys, or the tackle, I should say, if those guys aren't out there to make the tackle, Brad Beck has a lot more yardage. Here it is, 4th and 1. I think everybody was looking for the short thing up the middle or off the tackle somewhat. But this was a keeper all the way by quarterback Brad Beck. Number 7 tucks the ball away nicely this time. 4 times Brad has carried the ball for 60 yards.
1st and 10 for the Cats. Massett wide left, and Tino Herrera is wide right for Central. Beck hands off to Chandler, who's across midfield into the 49 of Smoky Hill.
And making the tackle that time, Tom Erlinson, who's been all over the place today, and Randy Knob for Smoky Hill. But the Wildcats are on a good drive. 6 minutes and 20 seconds to go in the first half. And Central and Smoky Hill tied up at 7. There it is, a nice play. It brings up a 2nd and 4. Nice 6-yard gain on first down.
And it is getting a little later here, and a few jackets on the sidelines now on the visitor side, which is the shady side of the field. The sunny side is Smoky Hills. There's still a shirt-sleeve crowd over there. 2nd and 4, pickup of 6 by Chan on that last carry. And Beck wants to throw this time. He's looking for Massett, and he's looking long. Massett has a step, and it is broken up. Great defensive play by 23. That's the punter for the Smoky Hill Buffalo, Jamie Rolls down there.
Jamie Rolls does everything. He also is the split end sometimes on offense. He can play all over the place. That time he had Massett one-on-one, and he really did a good job of covering Massett. As you mentioned, Massett had a step, had to wait just a little bit for the ball, and that's why Rolls was able to break it up. On the season, Massett by far the leading pass receiver for Central. Caught the ball 29 times going in for 484 yards with 5 touchdowns, and you can add even one more touchdown to that.
This is a 3rd and 4 call from the Cats. They're at the 49 of Smoky Hill. The option pitch to Chandler. Across the 45-40. Chandler cuts back to the middle to the 30. Down to the 24-yard line of Smoky Hill.
Terry Jones makes the tackle on Mike Chandler. Does that remind you of anybody, Harv? We'll take a look at it on the replay. Number 7, Brad Beck, looked like anybody we've seen before.
He's running the option like the magician up at Air Force. Marty Lawson, James Chandler, some nice moves, cuts back to the middle, picked up an extra 10 yards, and they're down to Smoky Hill's 24-yard line. Chandler showing some great speed.
Nice 25-yard run for Chandler, and the Central Wildcats all of a sudden in great field position. They started this drive on their own 21.
Herrera is split out wide right again. Bassett to the left this time. Beck straight up the middle to Leyva. Leyva breaks the tackle. 20, 15, down to the 13-yard line.
Number 41, Tom Erlinson, one of the big tacklers on the Smoky Hill team. The only man that had a chance to bring Chandler down before the touchdown, but it is a first down. It's inside the 20-yard line. At halftime, Coach James Ball must have found out a few little holes in that Smoky Hill defense. Chandler's carried the ball now 9 times for 66 yards. His counterpart in the backfield, Leyva, 9 carries for 44 yards.
And Leyva picked up a 1st and 10 on that last carry. The ball is at the Smoky Hill 14. It's where the officials will mark it. 5 minutes remaining in the 3rd quarter. And Beck goes to Chandler. Chandler to about the 11, and he is stopped immediately.
Val Jefferson, I should say, along with Tom Erlinson, makes the stop for the Smoky Hill Buffaloes. Not much of a gain that time. Well, we'll call it 3 yards, bring up a 2nd and 7 for the Central Wildcats. Hate to keep pointing it out, but the field goal kicker normally is Krasovic. He's not in the ball game, so that will obviously play a role in what Central decides to do, especially if we come up with some sort of 4th down situation.
And this time, the Wildcats send out 3 receivers. It is Massive, Krasovic, and Tino Herrera who will be in the pattern this time. 2nd and 7 called. Beck with a keeper, and he's inside the 10 to the 5 to the 4-yard line.
Beck carrying some players along with him that time. Number 65, Chad Jones, along with Erlinson on the stop. But you're right, that's inside the 5 to the 4, and they're knocking on the door, as they say.
The officials are going to make a measurement here. They've called timeout. That gain was just about 7 yards.
It may be a little bit short, but it really doesn't matter. That was only 2nd down, so it'll bring up a 3rd. So basically, Central has 2 shots to get it if they don't get it right here. It is a 1st down, but just by the nose of the football.
Yep, just them up. That's a 1st and goal now for the Cats, and they're at the 4-yard line of Smoky Hill. Let's see what the Smoky Hill Buffalo defense can do with their backs to the wall.
Here it is, Harv, from the end zone. That's quarterback Brad Beck. He's a good runner with the ball. He just carries number 65. Look at this. 65 can't bring him down until Brad is able to get just enough. For the 1st down, it's 1st and goal.
And that's a 260-pound tackle that he carried in there, Pat Hollinger. Brad Beck and the Cats from the 4-yard line. They're tied at 7 with Smoky Hill. Beck in the option the other way to Chandler. Chandler gets one block, but he does not make the outside. He is pushed out about the, well, we'll see where the officials mark it. This is close.
It certainly is. It looked like, a lot of people might have thought he got over for the touchdown, but he was actually out of bounds before he got over for the touchdown. So it's going to bring up a 2nd and goal call, and I believe he got to maybe the 2-yard line.
Awfully hard to tell. We've got a lot of soccer lines on this AstroTurf field here at Cherry Creek. There's Chandler. He picked up one good block from Leyva, but number 41 actually ran him down and forced him out of bounds, although Chandler did hit the stanchion that marks the goal line. So let's call it 2nd and goal from the 2 now for the Wildcats. Full house backfield this time. And that's Chandler, and Chandler is across the goal line for a touchdown. Central has its 1st lead of the ball game.
3rd rushing touchdown on the year for James Chandler for the Central Wildcats. He averaged 6.6 going into this ball game, and he's having a heck of a day today. And all these running backs, you have to give them a lot of credit. Krasovic's out. It hasn't hurt their momentum. It hasn't hurt their spirit any. He almost lost his footing right there, and he just drives right into number 65. That's Chad Jones. He's had all kinds of people all over him today. And for the first time in this ball game, Central's on top.
And another big extra point for Chris Hackworth. And Hackworth comes through under pressure again. He is not the normal place kicker. He puts it through. Central leading Smoky Hill 14-7 with 4 minutes and 6 seconds remaining here in the 3rd quarter.
11 plays, 4 minutes and 36 seconds. Harv, a 79-yard drive. key play had to be when they decided to go for it on 4th and inches. Brad Beck kept the ball, picked up some nice yardage, and Central is leading Smoky Hill.
And we'll be back with the rest of this third quarter and what should be an exciting fourth quarter after this. For some interesting kickoffs. Central leading 14-7 here in the third quarter against Smoky Hill. It's a line drive kick. Takes a wild hop inside the 15. Picked up at the 10, back to the 15 to the 20. A lane on the outside to the 30. Smoky Hill will start in good field position at about their own 33-yard line.
I thought that was going to be a big break for Central. The way that kick bounced around, I thought they would be able to pin Smoky Hill deep. They did turn it into a nice return. They have it on their own 32. And for the first time in this ball game, when Smoky Hill's had the ball, they're trailing. The Central Wildcats have done just one heck of a job. I think a lot of people wrote the Wildcats off early, especially a lot of the people up north in the Denver area. The only loss for Smoky Hill to a tough Cherry Creek club. But Central is obviously ready to play ball today.
1st and 10, Smoky Hill's Buffs from their own 33-yard line. Two backs behind Kofit. First back through is Beatty. And he takes it to the 37, maybe the 38-yard line.
Linebacker Joe Douglas makes the stop for the Central Wildcats. Pretty good yardage, however, on first down. Looks like a 4-yard gain. Well, they're only going to call it 3, so bring it up. No, now they're going to call it 5, Arv, so bring up a 2nd and 5 situation.
And that was Dave Decalotti on the last carry, number 22, who's into the backfield now, along with Stokes and Beatty. Decalotti not seeing a lot of action as a running back in the first half. And this time, Kofit wants to throw. He's getting some pressure from Romero and just throws it out of bounds to get away from that sack.
That's all that Kofit had a chance to do that time. Greg Romero was putting a lot of pressure on Kofit. He had a receiver out there. I think everybody knew that he was just throwing that one away, however, to save the loss.
And we talked about it. Greg Romero missed 6 games for the Wildcats this year. He has been a force this afternoon on defense. Plays a lot of offense too, but on defensive end, he has been a force, as we mentioned. So it's 3rd and 5 for the Buffaloes. They're at their own 38.5-yard line. The pitch to Stokes. Stokes gets by Romero, the 45, up to midfield, maybe the 49-yard line where his knee hit. That's a 1st and 10 for the Buffs.
And it's about midfield, and it looks like Smoky Hill is on a good drive once again. When we had Dave Socher up here at halftime, he said, are the uniforms switched? This is usually the way Smoky Hill plays defense. They allow a lot of yards, but not too many points. Central really has allowed a good chunk of yardage, but aside from that big, long run by Stokes in the first play of scrimmage, they haven't allowed anybody in the end zone. 1st
and 10 from the 49-yard line. Man moved to the line of scrimmage, and there is a flag. That was Stokes with the carry, but I believe we're going to have a procedure call against Smoky Hill. I think their left tackle was off a little early.
Has to be a procedure call in that instance on Smoky Hill, Harv. He moved a good half second before the snap was made. So instead of a 1st and 10, it's going to bring up a 1st and 15. Coach Jim Paul said going into this ball game that Smoky Hill passes a little bit better than they would like people to believe. Smoky Hill has obviously been known as a running club. We've seen it today. 3 running backs. He says they throw a little bit better than a lot of people think. Thus far, we really haven't seen that.
Motion green. 1st down.
Motion green against the Smoky Hill Buffaloes. Puts the ball back at the 44-yard line. So it'll be a 1st and 15 call. And they've only got 2 backs in their pro set this time behind Kofit. Dave Decalotti is one, Beatty is the other. Kofit wants to throw. He's looking for Vavra. Vavra makes a move and makes the catch at the central 44-yard line, and he dropped it on the way down, I guess.
I guess so. We're covered up here. We can't see it. We have the Central players in front of us. All we could see were the players clapping and Coach Jim Paul jumping up and down. And we'll see it. We have it on the replay camera. Vavra, the intended receiver. There it looks like he has the ball, and there he loses it. It's a good call. Incomplete pass. 2nd and long. 2nd and 15 now for the Buffaloes.
Vavra had the catch and just dropped it on the way down. Tough ball to handle. 44-yard line for the Buffaloes. 2 minutes, 33 seconds remaining, third quarter of action. Oh, big hole for Beatty this time. Beatty might break it. He's got his man beat Mestis, and Beatty goes for the corner. Beatty will score on a 2nd and 15 call. Beatty goes 56 yards, and Smoky Hill's right back in it.
They certainly are hard. That's the one thing that's killed Central today. And the main thing, big plays by Smoky Hill. They've scored both times on huge, long runs. So the score is 14-13. It'll be interesting to see if they want to go for two in the lead or if they want to just go for the tie. And it looks like the field goal kicker is in, so they're going for the tie. If they're tied at the end of regulation, we'll have a heck of a time explaining how sudden death works or how overtime works. It's not sudden death. Overtime is completely different in high school, and we won't even worry about that, Harv, until it gets there.
14-13 Central. Jeff Beatty just going 56 yards. There's the kick. It is good, but just barely over the crossbar, a line drive. And Smoky Hill has tied it up at 14.
6 plays, 1 minute and 43 seconds, and 66 yards. And once again, we're all tied up at 14-14. Harv and I will be back here at the Stutler Bowl right after this.
Hill Buffaloes, James Chandler and Greg Leba are deep for Central. We are knotted at 14 apiece after a 56-yard run by Jeff Beatty of Smoky Hill. Wilson's kick is high and very short this time. Chandler takes it about his 12 and drops it. Picks it up, and he is across the 15, up to the 20. He's got a hole now. 30, 35. He gets the block. 40, 45, 47-yard line. James Chandler very nearly busted that one.
No flags on the field, Harv. It's a big, big break for Central when it looked like it was a bad break. That's one of those instances where a fumble on the kickoff actually helps you. It goofs up the coverage. The coverage actually has time to pass you by, and he broke that one tackle right. Ooh, there.
I think the referees may have missed an illegal use of hands there.
Oh, that looked like a clip on number 76, Chuck Puja for Central. Fortunately, the Wildcats did not get the call that time.
They've got it 1st and 10 at their 46-yard line. Beck wants to throw. He's got Krasovic inside Smoky Hill territory to about the 43-yard line, and he's gang tackled there.
It's interesting to see how momentum changes in a game like this. The momentum, Old Mo was obviously on the side of Smoky Hill when they broke that big play for the touchdown. Central was just stunned. But now this play, I think, has fired up the Wildcats. And as I mentioned, I thought we're going to see a lot more of Greg Krasovic here in the second half. They're covering Massett so well. I think Beck's going to have to go to Krasovic a few more times.
And that was just about a 10-yard gain. The officials are taking time out to make sure it was 10. Got a minute 51 remaining in the third quarter. It's 14-14, Smoky Hill and Central.
And it is a first down. Central's been able to pick up first downs just barely by the nose of the football one more time. Not actually not even that much. As the sun starts to set here at Stutler Bowl, actually this ball game, I'm sure all the viewers that have been with us from the kickoff know that we started a little bit late. Scheduled kickoff time at 2:30. It was moved back to 2:45 because that Cherry Creek George Washington game went a little bit long. So we'll probably see a little bit of darkness before this one is over with, but there's plenty of lights out here, and we're all set.
Lights have been on for the last 3 quarters, as a matter of fact. From the 43, that is Chandler inside the 40, 35-yard line. James Chandler took it down to the 34-yard line of Smoky Hill.
Tom Erlinson makes the tackle for Smoky Hill, and I tell you what, the last 2 times Central has had the ball, it's obvious that the Central defensive staff, or the Central offensive staff, has picked up a few holes in this Smoky Hill defense. And Chandler, on some of those quick breakers, is really picking up some good yardage thus far. Harv, 13 carries for 81 yards.
Including a nice kickoff return to start this drive. Just a minute left in the third quarter. Central has the ball 2nd and 2 from the Smoky Hill 34-yard line. Jackson the pro set, Herrera and Massett both split out wide right this time. Beck wants to throw. He looks to his left, and he's tackled from behind, throws the ball incomplete, and there's a flag on the play.
I think they're going to call Central for a holding. Number 71, Brad Robinson for Smoky Hill, was just about ready to level Brad Beck. That's exactly the call, holding on the Wildcats.
And that will certainly change things. They had the ball inside the Smoky Hill 35-yard line on a 2nd and very short.
I'm going to talk it over just a little bit. Actually, they're talking with Central, but it's obviously a call against the Wildcats. Smoky Hill will take it, and that's going to bring up a totally different situation, as Harv mentioned. We're going to march off 15 yards, and that will bring up, what, 2nd and
about 17.
Yeah.
And it's going to be just inside Smoky Hill territory.
Offense. 2nd down.
At least they're not calling numbers, so they're going to embarrass anybody out here.
I do want to mention the officials have done a great job out here. It's one of the best officiated games I've seen in high school football this year. 46 seconds remaining third quarter. Smoky Hill 14, Central 14. Cats with the ball, 2nd and 16 call. And Beck goes straight up the middle to Leyva, and Leyva is down to about the 45-yard line.
And Smoky Hill on the tackle that time was number 35, Scott Sharofsky for the Smoky Hill Buffaloes. Smoky Hill different in one factor from Central. They have very few guys that play both ways. In fact, the only main guy that goes both ways is the split-in Vavra, who also plays in the defensive backfield for Smoky Hill. Totally different for Central. They have a lot of guys that play on both sides of the line.
And it's still a 3rd and long, 3rd and 12 to go. 15 seconds remaining in the 3rd quarter. Beck wants to throw for it. He's looking for Massett again. Massett with a great pattern, but he's thrown behind. Beck threw the ball behind him. Massett cut in. Beck expected him to go out to the sideline.
Jamie Rolls was covering Massett, and he had the outside pattern covered. That's when Massett made the move to go inside. It was a good move. He faked out Rolls. Unfortunately, Brad Beck was unable to pick it up.
So with 3 seconds remaining before the end of the 3rd quarter, Central will have to punt. You can see Massett will be by himself. The ball was thrown the other direction, just miscommunication. And Beck will be punting for the Cats. Navinshu is back deep for the Buffaloes. And it's a good punt. It'll go out of bounds. We'll have to see where the referees mark this one. There was not a referee really near the play. They had to come from the other side of the field. And he is marching up to about the 18-yard line. That is the end of the 3rd quarter. You see the score, Smoky Hill 14, Central 14. We'll be back right after this. Bowl, 12 minutes of football remaining. We are not at 14 apiece. Smoky Hill has the ball, 1st and 10 at their own 18-yard line. Quarterback is Brad Kofid, number 18. 2 backs in the pro set. He hands to the first man through, who is Beatty, and Beatty crosses the 20, maybe to the 21.
A lot of guys on the tackle for Central. Randy Brandt, the nose guard, right up there along with several other Wildcats to bring him down after a gain of 4, bring up a 2nd and 6. 14-14 tie. Both of these defenses have allowed more than their average. Central averaging 10.5 per ball game is all. Smoky Hill defense a little bit better, 10.2. Both teams have allowed 2 touchdowns today.
2nd and 6 for Kofid and the Buffs, and that is Stokes, who gets across the 25-yard line and is still a little short of the 1st and 10.
This is one of those situations, Harv, where I think both coaches know what a close ball game it is, and in the 4th quarter how a turnover could be very critical. So I think we'll see some ball control type offense, especially if it's working for both teams.
We mentioned a little bit earlier during the break that Smoky Hill has a field goal kicker, Mr. Wilson, and the Wildcats are going with their 2nd stringer Hackworth because Krasovic is out of the ball game. 3rd and 3 call, big call for the Buffs. That is Beatty, and Beatty has the 1st and 10. He is up to about the 35-yard line, maybe the 34.
John Rodriguez makes the tackle for the Central Wildcats. They know who's number 1. We'll have to wait and see after the ball game to find out who officially is number 1 in this one. But it is a 1st down, just enough to get the 1st down. And Rodriguez comes over right there to bring him down. But the Smoky Hill Buffaloes now starting to eat up a little bit of clock and make a move at the same time.
10:40 left now for Smoky Hill. The pitch goes outside to Dave Decalotti. Decalotti, who didn't see a lot of action in the 1st half, has been carrying the ball in the 2nd half. We've got a flag on the end of that play.
Smoky Hill players are jumping up and down as the flag goes down, which would lead you to believe that it was laid in some type of penalty on the Central Wildcats. That's exactly what it is. Rushing now for Smoky Hill. Amazing stats. Stokes, 11 carries for 100 yards. That's almost a 10-yard average. Beatty, 10 carries for 113. And they mark off that critical penalty against the Wildcats. Big, big penalty here, Hart.
I think it's probably a face mask call.
It came very late, either a face mask or a late hit would probably be the case. See if we can pick it up here on the pitch. And, well, you can't see anything yet. And there it is. It is a face mask. You can see on the tackle a face mask, but it really wasn't a flagrant type situation. Doesn't matter. It's a big penalty in high school.
And Smoky Hill now into Central territory at the 47-yard line. 2nd man, that is Nabinshu around the left side, gets by Romero. Mestis has a chance, he misses the tackle. Nabinshu drops the ball and Central is recovered. That's Tino Herrera with the recovery at the 32-yard line. Big turnover.
Big turnover. I thought for a moment he was going to pick up big yardage, maybe break it for the score. The ball popped loose. Tino Herrera was able to come up with it. Take a look at Nabinshu. He puts a heck of a move on number 6, Mike Mestis for the Wildcats, and it was right after that he fumbled the football. Here's the move on Mestis. kind of straight arms him a little bit, gets away, and then coming up right here, the tackle by number 89 for the Central Wildcats, and that's Kurt Lytle. And Herrera comes up with a big turnover.
10 minutes left in the ball game. Central now at their own 32, 1st and 10. There's the handoff to Chandler. The ball's loose again. Smoky Hill is recovered in midair. Number 87 is saving tackle by Brad Beck, and a big recovery. Another turnover. That is Terry Jones for the Smoky Hill Buffaloes. What a turnabout.
I tell you what, Omo was just shifting from one play to the next. Thank goodness Brad Beck was able to pull him down, or that would have been a touchdown. Smoky Hill in supreme territory. Now here it is on the replay. Ball just pops up right into the air. And Jones was just in the right place at the right time. Beck was pushed away, but he was able to fight off the blocker and pull down Terry Jones, but Smoky Hill knocking on the door right now.
They're at the 11-yard line of the Wildcats with 9 minutes and 40 seconds remaining in this ball game. And Brad Kofit does not like his offensive alignment. He takes the timeout, so we will too. With 9 minutes, 41 seconds remaining, Central 14, Smoky Hill 14. We'll be back after this. About the 11-yard line of the Central Wildcats, 1st and 10, and they can get a first down without scoring. Brad Kofit, the Smoky Hill quarterback, he's number 18. He's got that full house backfield behind him. And he gives to Stokes. Stokes gets a block, and he's down inside the 10 to about the 7, maybe the 6-yard line.
Once again, we're at that bad angle. We have to apologize. We're rather low on the field, but I believe they're going to call it to the 7, bring up a 2nd and sit situation. Randy Brandt makes a tackle for the Central Wildcats. He goes into that nose guard spot since Mike Krasovic is out in the defense for Central.
And this is a big possession for the Smoky Hill Buffaloes. They're tied with Central at 14. Second man, that's Decalotti. Decalotti is stacked up right about the line of scrimmage. Great surge by the Cat defensive line.
Jay Tappy, a big guy, makes the tackle for the Central Wildcats, 225 pounds. He's only listed as an offensive tackle, but he was in the ball game in that situation.
We do have one more final score from this afternoon's action. Pomona, a 7-5 winner over Fairview. Pomona advances to play the Watson T-Birds.
They played baseball
last night. 7-5 sounded like a baseball score. 3rd and 4 for Smoky Hill. And that is Beatty, and Beatty scores. Jeff Beatty from about the 7-yard line, basically untouched into the end zone.
I think everybody thought Kofit had the ball. I know I did. That's who I had the binoculars on. Kofit, a very fine quarterback. You know, he doesn't run the ball much, and he doesn't really throw the ball that well. But the misdirection and the handoff, he's one of the best I've ever seen. He puts it in the gut. It's almost like Louthan giving it to John Kirshner up the middle. Breaks one tackle. That's all he needed. Smoky Hill back in the lead. 8:32 to go in the ball game. It took only 3 plays, 12 yards, 122 for the score. The big play, the fumble, Harv.
It's Greg Wilson with the extra point, and it is good. So with 8 minutes, 32 seconds remaining, Smoky Hill, after the big turnover, has 21, Central 14, and we'll be back with the rest of this 4th quarter after this. Smoky Hill set to kick off. Greg Wilson, number 12, handles those chores. Greg Leba and James Chandler back deep for the Wildcats. His kick is high. Chandler will take it at his 6-yard line. He's across the 10, the 15. Chandler gets a block. He's up to the 20-yard line. They'll probably mark it just about the 19.
And a very late flag goes down in the field, Harv, and it goes up around the 40-yard line of the Central Wildcats. And we're talking late flag. The two teams were changing special units to offense and defense when that flag goes down. The two referees are talking it over. I have no idea what kind of call this could have been. It was away from the play near the 40-yard line, so we'll have to wait and see.
It's going to be unsportsmanlike conduct.
Dead ball, personal foul here. Dead ball, personal foul here. They offset. First down.
Tempers flaring on that kickoff. Smoky Hill 21, Central 14, 8 minutes, 27 seconds remaining. Cats are 81 yards from a tie.
But they have driven a couple of times. They have a 79-yard drive for a score. That was their last score here in the second half. First half, they went 80 yards for the touchdown, so they are capable.
Tino Herrera is split wide right. Massett goes left. Backs Leba and Chandler in the eye behind Brad Beck. Beck's second back is Chandler, and Chandler may have gotten a yard.
I think it's come to the time where quarterback Brad Beck is going to have to go to the air. If Massett's covered, he's going to have to look for guys like Greg Leba or the other Krasovic, a tight end. Right now, the Smoky Hill defense is fired up. The clock is counting. We're less than 8 minutes to go. Central does need to get 7 points to at least tie this ball game up and force the overtime situation that they have here in high school ball.
Herrera and Massett once again the wide receivers, and the back still in the eye behind Brad Beck. And Beck, first man through is Leba. He breaks 2 tackles. He's up to the 30. 35-yard line, pushed out about the 36. 1st and 10, Wildcats.
Finally run out of bounds by Randy Knob for the Smoky Hill Ball Club, but he broke a couple of tackles. Tom Erlinson probably had the best shot at Greg Leba. We'll take a look at it. Erlinson's number is number 41. I think he had the best shot at Leba. There's Erlinson. He misses him. Leba off to the races. That's what the Wildcats needed. Just when I said I think they're going to have to throw the ball, they come up with a nice big run, and that's why I'm sitting up here and Jim Paul is on the sideline.
36-yard line of the Cats. 1st and 10. 7 minutes, 37 seconds remaining. Smoky Hill with a 7-point lead, 21-14. This time backs are in the pro set. Massett the only wide receiver for Central. And Beck on the option. Decides to keep it. Spin move to the 40-yard line. Got by that one tackler and picked up about 4 yards.
And I believe that was Brad Robinson who makes the tackle on quarterback Brad Beck. Looks like they're going to need about 6.5 yards. We'll call it third in a long 6 situation now for the Wildcats. Second, I should say, in a long 6 situation for the Wildcats.
Brad Beck, a lot of option plays today, and he's decided to keep most of them. The ball sitting just right at the 40-yard line of Central, and 7 minutes remaining in this ball game. Option again. And Beck pitches to Chandler behind the line of scrimmage. He picked up about 2. They're going to mark him out. No, they're going to mark him out the 43-yard line and give him 3 on that carry.
Haven't seen Steve Massett in the offense a whole lot, although Central has shown they don't want to pass a whole lot, at least in this situation. But Massett, the leading receiver for the Wildcats, caught a touchdown pass today. Smoky Hill is assigned number 23, Jamie Rolls, to Massett. I've been watching it the last couple of plays, although they've been running plays. Rolls, one-on-one, has been all over Massett. So I think if they're going to pass, they're going to have to look for guys like Krasovic and Leba, as I mentioned just a few moments ago.
And Rolls has been doing a great job on that one-on-one coverage. Ball's at the 43. Call it 3rd down and about 3. It's going to be a long 3 for the Cats. Beck straight up the middle. He did not get it, but the spin and the second effort gives the Central Wildcats a 1st and 10. Great carry by Leba. Hit at the line of scrimmage immediately, spun off to his left and got that extra yardage.
2nd, 3rd, and 4th effort for Greg Leba that time. Actually, the first hit, Leba should have been stopped for maybe a loss of a yard. He just spins around, breaks 1 tackle, breaks 2 tackles, and Greg Leba, 12 carries for 68 yards, picks up a much-needed 1st down for Central.
The ball's at the Cat 47-yard line. And the officials are taking a timeout. Now apparently they're going to get things started. 6 minutes and 40 seconds remaining. Smoky Hill 21, Central 14. Cats have just picked up a 1st down, and they are on a move. This drive started at their own 19-yard line. Beck wants to throw for it. He's got 2 receivers to his right. He doesn't have time to throw, so he keeps the ball across midfield. Cuts back 45, inside the 40 to the 39-yard line. Brad Beck.
Boy, Brad Beck knows how to ad-lib. He knows how to do something with the football when his receivers are covered. He sent both Massett and Chandler out of the backfield as receivers to the right. Chandler was finally able to break open, but not enough time for Brad Beck. He had too much pressure, and he has to roll out of the pocket. And I tell you what, he carries the football kind of strangely, but he hasn't fumbled the ball today. So Brad Beck now 7 carries for 84 yards in this ball game.
And there is exactly 6 minutes remaining in this ball game. Backs in the pro set. Chandler and Leba seen all the action after Krasovic went out. Beck wants to throw. Does quickly to Chandler out of the backfield. Chandler inside the 35-yard line. He's forced out of bounds. I guess they'll mark it right about the 35.
And that's Jamie Rolls forcing Chandler out of bounds. I'd like to mention all the statistics we're giving the folks this afternoon are purely unofficial, but we want to definitely thank our statistician, Scott Chorski, who's joined Harv and I in the booth this afternoon. Doing a good job, Scott.
Doing a great job. And we are just about into a night game here at the Stutler Bowl. The sun is down. Lights have been on since the 2nd quarter. Central with a 2nd and 5 now at the Smoky Hill 35-yard line. The Cats are trailing by 7. They need it. This time, first back through is Chandler, and he gets for about 3 tough yards. He's down to about the 32-yard line, and the yardage is getting tough now.
And the clock continues to count, Harv. 5 minutes and 43 seconds to go. Central within 7 points of this favored Smoky Hill Ball Club. The Smoky Hill team, as we mentioned earlier, they've lost only once, and they lost to what has to be considered right now the best 4A team in the state, best high school team in the state, Cherry Creek, who looks so impressive today. It was 27-0 last week. Smoky Hill hoping not to have 2 losses in a row.
Big 3rd down and 2 call for the Cats. Beck on the option, keeps it, and is dropped behind the line of scrimmage.
A lot of people for Smoky Hill in on the tackle that time, but I think leading the way had to be number 35, Scott Sharofsky for the Smoky Hill Buffaloes. We mentioned Krasovic's out. I think a field goal would have been out of the question anyway in this instance. I think they're probably going to go for it as looks like we have an equipment timeout for something concerning Brad Beck's helmet, maybe.
Either his mouthpiece or his helmet. Beck is getting things together about the 35-yard line. He is just about a 1.5 yards short. Call it a short 2 on 4th down.
I think it's a contact lens, Harvey. He was down in his knee. I'm almost sure that's what it was. He had to put the contact lens back in. So far, the Wildcats have eaten up 3 minutes and 25 seconds. 9 plays in this drive. I want to mention to all our football fans out there, plenty of football all weekend long right here on channels 5 and 30. Big game coming up, 2 o'clock kickoff tomorrow. The LA Raiders and the Denver Broncos. That brings back the return of John Elway as the starting quarterback. Broncos win that ball game. They'll be tied for the AFC West lead. And right after that, our Air Force show, Air Force football with Ken Hatfield.
4th down and 3. 4 minutes, 52 seconds remaining. This is the ball game for Central right now, and Beck wants to throw for it. He's pressured out of the pocket. He rolls and drops at the 44-yard line. Smoky Hill will take over. 4 minutes and 40 seconds left. That may have been it.
Credit Terry Jones very much so with that situation, Harv. Jones, the man who came up with the crucial interception a little while ago, was rushing in the backfield and was all over Brad Beck. It looked like Brad got away from it, but then just tripped up a little bit. Smoky Hill takes over, and the Central defense is going to have to stop them and stop them quick.
They could use a big turnover here.
Certainly
Smoky Hill, 1st and 10 from their own 44-yard line. Brad Kofod, their quarterback. He hands off up the middle, and Beatty breaks across midfield to the 49-yard line. Check that. That is Jeff Novinshoe, not Jeff Beatty.
Nice tackle by Randy Brandt for the Central Wildcats to prevent an even further gain, but it was a gain of 6 yards. Good gain on 1st down. 2nd and 4. The clock's counting, and it's very crucial. 4:14 to go.
Going to mark it right at the Central 49-yard line, and it is 2nd and 4 for Smoky Hill. Handoff this time is Beatty, and he gets about 2 more yards. And it's going to be a 3rd down and about 2.
3rd and 2, I think, will be exactly what the call is. Obviously, Central has to stop them, or almost has to stop them on this situation. They just can't allow Smoky Hill to continue to run the clock out. I seriously doubt if Smoky Hill will throw many more passes. That clock is counting, and it's on the side of the Buffaloes right now. 3:40 to go. The Wildcat defense looking for a big play.
Smoky Hill 21, Central 14. Here's a big 3rd down call for both sides. And Kofod goes to Beatty, and Beatty has the 1st down and more inside the 40 to the 38-yard line of the Wildcats.
That'll bring up a 1st and 10, give Smoky Hill 3 or 4 more plays to run some more time off the clock, and I think 1 more 1st down, and it's going to be a very tough situation for Central to come up with anything here.
Beatty showing a lot of moves today. He broke that 56-yarder. He has 132 yards on 13 carries. Great afternoon for Jeff Beatty.
Several guys averaging, I think all 3 other guys are averaging right at or over 10 yards per carry. You can't beat that.
1st and 10 from the Cats, 39. And there is Beatty again. He gets a block on the outside, and he will go. Jeff Beatty will score for Smoky Hill, and that will wrap things up. Beatty's 2nd long touchdown of the game. 2 minutes, 55 seconds remaining, and Smoky Hill right now leading 27-14.
Looking for a few flags on the field. There are none, Harv. The game is just about over with. 2:55 to go. Central needs 2 touchdowns now to get back in this game. There you see Beatty. These guys, he's tough inside, but man, when he gets outside, the guy's got some wheels. He can move, and that's got to take the wind out of the sails of Central. It's all over but the shout.
Happy Smoky Hill Buffalo sideline. 39 yards in the carry for Jeff Beatty. And as you mentioned, just about put things out of reach. And Greg Wilson on to attempt the extra point for the Buffaloes. And the kick is blocked.
I think go ahead. Well, I was going to say, I think it was number 77, Bruce Schultz, in to block that attempt. I can't be sure, however. Possibly a crucial extra point. Now Central with 2 touchdowns and the points after would take the lead, but it's going to be very hard with less than 3 minutes to go to get 2 more scores on the board.
2:55, Smoky Hill 27, Central 14. We'll be back with the wrap-up of this ball game after this. The extra point was blocked, so it's Smoky Hill 27, Central 14. Leyba and Chandler back deep for the Wildcats, and they need a return here. They've only got 2 minutes and 55 seconds left. Wilson gets a leg into this one. It drives Leyba back into the end zone and the ball out of the end zone. So the Wildcats will start 80 yards away, 1st and 10 from their own 20.
That thin mile-high air allowed that one to go clean out of the end zone. I'm sure Brad Beck will have to go to the air now. Listen to these stats, Harv. Smoky Hill rushing. Beatty, 14 carries, 171 yards. Stokes, 13, 106. Nabenshu, only 11 carries for 69 yards. That's 357 yards rushing. A very, very good rushing ball club.
Smoky Hill Buffaloes have proven a point this afternoon. And now we're into the evening. It's basically a night game now. Lights on here at the Stetler Bowl. And the Cats behind Brad Beck will probably be throwing the ball. Whistles go off. I don't see any flags yet. Smoky Hill apparently has taken a timeout.
Looks that way right at the last minute. They didn't like what Central was doing offensively or whatnot, but they do call a timeout. And really interesting why Smoky Hill would call a timeout in that situation. We still have 2 minutes, 55 seconds to go. It's 27-14, and I believe the Wildcats got to go the air route now.
I'm afraid so. Beck has not thrown much this half, but he's going to have to go to the air now. 27-14, 2 touchdowns and 2 extra points would do it for the Wildcats, but we mentioned there's not that much time left. Smoky Hill Buffaloes just want to make sure they have their defensive alignment set up. Cats starting from their own 20, 1st and 10. There's the situation. Chandler and Leyba, the backs in the pro set. Massett and Herrera out wide for the Cats. And Beck is throwing straight drop. He's looking for Massett. Massett well covered. Beck straight up the middle. Is across the 25 to the 27, the 28, 29-yard line.
Almost thought we were going to have a face mask call on quarterback Brad Beck, number 76, Jeff Barnett. Looked like he went for the face mask. The referee thought about it for a second and did not throw the flag. Wildcats going on the quick count.
Wildcats without a huddle this time come up with a 2nd and 1 call, 9-yard gain. Beck throws for Massett. Massett drops it out of bounds, but it does stop the clock.
And on a 3rd and short situation, they'll have 2 chances to pick it up, so they might go for a pass this time. If they don't get it, run for it on 4th down. Of course, coming up very shortly after our ball game is over with, Harv. We'll have Eyewitness News coming up tonight to have all the scores of all the high school football games going on today. Some highlights. The Harrison Panthers don't have anything on them, but they're playing at home today, Gary Berry Stadium. Mike Saladino will have all that for you a little bit later on tonight.
So it's 3rd and 1 for Brad Beck and the Central Wildcats. Beck wants to throw again, and he is pressured, and he will be dropped at the 25.
Well, that's kind of what I thought they would do, Harv. I thought they would pass it on 3rd down. If they didn't get it, then they would have a 4th and 1, a running play to pick it up on 4th down. But with that sack, it's going to bring up 4th and a little bit longer than 1. We're going to call it 4th and 5. And I think the Wildcats are going to have to go to the air again.
Smoky Hill now sending everybody because they're also aware it's passing situations every time. And there was just no way that Beck was going to get away that time. 3 Buffaloes around him.
Brad Robinson leading the way, 6'3.5", 215 pounds.
There's a worried Coach Jim Paul on the sidelines. It's been a tough afternoon. 1 big turnover turned this ball game around. Beck to throw. This is a 4th and 5 call. He's throwing for Massett, and it is intercepted by guess who?
Guess who? Jamie Rolls.
Number 23 has played a great ball game for the Smoky Hill Buffaloes. And if it didn't wrap things up earlier, that has definitely done it. Smoky Hill will take over 1st and 10 inside the Central 40-yard line.
Take a look at it on the replay. Beck with plenty of time to pass. Most of the day he's had some time. He's had a little bit of pressure. The Rolls just taking a few chances on defense, stepped right in front of Massett, intercepts the pass, and that's got to be the end of this ball game.
Minute 32 remaining, and Smoky Hill comes out 1st and 10 from the Central 39-yard line. You know what they will be doing. Keeping it on the ground, and that is Nabenshu up the middle. Check that, Dave Decolotti, not Nabenshu, 22 instead of 21. Game's about 4.
I think both coaches are putting quite a few substitutions in the ball game now. It's all over, but the final few seconds, about a minute to go, I think both coaches want to make sure that as many players as possible will have the opportunity to play in a state championship ball game.
Credit the Central crowd that has come from Pueblo. Not too many people have left this game. You see the situation. There's only 50 seconds remaining. Central down by 13. 4 yards in the last carry by Decalotti. Smoky Hill has the ball at the Central 35. And that is Beatty who breaks it again inside the 30 to the 26-yard line.
This Beatty is something else. Coming into the ballgame, Harv, he was not the leading rusher on the team. Stokes was. He had 507 yards. Navanshu had 496. Beatty only 484, but he had by far the most carries. The fullback with 104 carries averaged about 5 yards per carry going into this one. However, today he's well over that, 15 times for 179 yards.
And 2 long touchdown runs, 139 yards, 156 yards. The dejected quarterback, Brad Beck, on the sidelines for the Central Cats. Played a great ball game. That one turnover, the fumble recovery in midair, just changed the game around. And Smoky Hill has another first. That was a 1st and 10 call. They've got it down to about the Central 21-yard line, and Beatty again with the carry.
That's going to be it, Harv. The clock will count down, 6, 5, 4, and so on. You're right, the key play had to be the fumble by Central, right up in the air by Chandler. Right before that, the Wildcats had picked up a big break. When they recovered a fumble on a pass reception by Smoky Hill, they turned it right back over to Smoky Hill on about the 11-yard line. The Buffaloes took the lead for good, and that's it. But congratulations to head coach Jim Paul and the Central High Wildcats for a fine season this year. Smoky Hill wins it, however, by a score of 27-14, and they only threw the ball twice in the second half.
And we'll be back here at the Stutler Bowl to wrap things up right after this. Creek High School, where we've just seen the Smoky Hill Buffaloes defeat the Central Wildcats from Pueblo 27-14 in the first round of 4A high school playoff action. It was a great ball game, Lee. It was tied 14-14 third quarter. Consecutive turnovers turned this ball game around.
Certainly did, Harv. Smoky Hill on a drive fumbled the ball on a pass reception. Central recovers it in their own territory, about the 30-yard line. The very next play, Chandler fumbles it up in the air. Terry Jones, big defensive lineman, picks it up. He runs to the 11. They score. Beatty does just a few plays later, and that's really what decided the ball game. It's a lot closer than the score, really. 27-14. Central played a lot better ball game than that. But 1983 is over for Jim Paul and the Wildcats.
And that's Jeff Beatty you see in the middle of the field. He was this afternoon's hero, over 180 yards rushing. Smoky Hill winner, 27-14. We want to thank you for joining us. Once again, thanks to our statistician, Scott Chorsky, and all the people on the sidelines. That'll wrap things up from the Stutler Bowl at Cherry Creek. Smoky Hill beating Central 12-14.